right, thanks everybody for coming. This is going to be fast as we go through this because there's a fair amount of stuff I want to go through. And I want to structure this talk as, this is not a lecture talk, this is more of a, let's talk about it, where we are in terms of the state of understanding these generative AI platforms like Midjourney and what they mean and what are some of the controversies around these platforms right now, and how we can possibly use them, and maybe some ways for us to think about using them in our own work going forward. So, who knows what Midjourney or the two words generative AI and what they mean? Does anybody in here know what that means? There's one person in the back. Who knows what Midjourney is? Who knows what DALL-E is? Okay, so most of us are familiar with this concept of text to image generation, right? Who knows what the controversy today about these platforms is? What's the main controversy? Yeah.
The main controversy that I'm encountering is that they're trained on actual artists' work.
Correct. Kerfluffle. Yeah, is that how you say it? Kerfluffle or kerfuffle? One of those. Just mess, right? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you're exactly right. So we're going to talk about that as we progress through the presentation, some of the controversy around using this technology and what you should do if you are an artist that's considering it, or even not an artist that's considering it. What are some of the pitfalls you should look out for? What are some of the legalities that are in the courts right now with regard to this art form? I put in quotes, because is it or isn't it, right? So we have to talk about all that. I want to do some demos as well with some software that actually generates these kind of images. For example, that one on the right there was created in, what was it? Midjourney. That was created in Midjourney. So I'm going to demo how that works so you guys can see it live. Who's used Midjourney and made images in it? Just a few of you? Yeah, cool. So for the rest of you, and even for the folks that have seen it, you may find it interesting at how simple it is to create something like that never existed before, that you can now use in other projects. For example, that was used in a macro photography tutorial thing that I was working on and recording. That's what that got used for. So a little bit about me before we start this presentation. Who am I? I am your speaker. I'm Frederick Van Johnson. I'm a photographer and a podcaster. That photo there is AI. It was generated from with an app called Lensa AI on the iPhone. That's an app where you feed it a bunch of images and then it generates a gallery of images of you in different situations and positions. That never existed before. So that is hopefully a completely original image. However, I put it in in all of my presentations, but particularly this one, because I wanted to illustrate the idea of what we just talked about. Who owns it? This art was, I don't know who developed this style of art, but the computer did not. It's mimicking somebody else to create that photo of me. So part of the controversy is, if you spend a lifetime developing that particular style of art and a computer ingests your body of work and is able to simulate that and create that for me, whose is it? And is it genuine? And should it do it? So, I mean, if the artist that developed that style was sitting in here, I'm sure they'd feel some kind of way about me showing a photo that was created in their style on the screen that they had no idea was being used. So those are some of the little nuances that we're dealing with, but a lot of this stuff it's toothpaste that's out of the tube already. So you can't put it back in, so now you just figure out how to clean it up and how to make things useful as we move forward. So like I said, you can find me at frederickvan.com. That site is launching this month, so if you guys head over there and put your email address in there, I will notify you when the site goes live. It's the thisweekinphoto.com site that I run is one of the longest running photography-focused podcasts and communities and educational resources for photographers. That the Frederick Van version of the stuff that I do will be more, it will have a broader focus, whereas This Week in Photo, that podcast is more focused on photography, obviously, Frederick Van will be focused more on all of this other stuff, content creation, whether it be AI, whether it be video, all the things. So looking forward to putting that out in the world. This talk is a good example of Frederick Van type content versus strict photography type content. And then one last thing about me with This Week in Photo, that podcast, last year I sold the podcast, or was acquired rather, by a larger company called SmugMug, who also acquired Flickr back in 2018. So now they own my company and Flickr, and I'm now officially a part of that company, though still running my company and all the things. So now I'm part of that org. What are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about this stuff. So we are in section 1, introduction, finishing that up. We're going to talk about the definition of generative AI. So when you guys leave here, you'll know what it is. You're going to be hearing this term probably for the rest of your lives, I think. If you're not familiar with it now, you'll be hearing it going forward. It's a thing, just like you didn't know what the metaverse was 2 years ago, and before you didn't know what was the other one? You didn't know what the acronym NFT was last year. Now you do. You know, it's generative AI this time around. So who knows what next year or the year after will bring. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to show you a bunch of images that were created using Midjourney, and we can discuss how they were made and all that. I want to get you guys familiar with some of the industry players so that I can whet your appetite to go out and do your own research and play with these models. Most of them are free, so you can go out there and play around. I want to talk a lot. I want us to have a kind of dialogue about the law and the morality of this stuff. And is it you know, are you fighting the wind, or are we at a stage where you can still affect change in what's happening, or do you have to be a multi-billionaire in order to affect change in how these things are being built and developed? I don't know. Then in section 6, I'll demo it. So I'm going to bring up Midjourney inside of Discord, and together we'll build some original art before we leave the room. And then a couple of friends of mine recorded short video clips around the industry. They recorded short video clips for me to play for you with their sort of top line thoughts on this, because I thought it was important to have a variety of opinions kind of discussing from different perspectives how they think about it. We've got one guy in there that's going to tell you his perspective from a working 30-year wedding photographer standpoint. And I've got another person in there who's a compositing artist, and she's going to talk about the impact of AI or these kinds of models on her work. A spoiler, not good. And then, then conclusion. You know, we'll do conclusion and Q&A, and we'll just sort of wrap it up with questions and all that kind of stuff. So, should be fun. So let's start off with what is generative AI? So I thought I would describe it from my perspective, or just my own words, what I think generative AI is. But then I'm going to ask the AI, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to describe it for us, so we can see how those mix together. So we'll do kind of a hybrid talk here, human versus synthetic intelligence over here. So generative AI is, at its core, it is the science of training a computer model on a variety of data so that it can then make inferences on that data and produce original, quote, output based on that data. This is what our brains do. So our brains look at stuff and then make decisions on what we see. We read a book, and now we have all that data, and we can make different decisions based on what we read in that book. Or we can look at a bunch of photographs and decide we want to shoot like that. So we go out and start shooting like what we saw in those photographs. So that's kind of a form of generative AI happening in our heads. What these computers are doing is that times a bazillion, right? So now imagine if you could take the sum total, or let's just say not even the sum total. Let's say you could take 1 billion photographs of a thing. So 1 billion photographs of a horse, right? And then you tell AI to create a photo of a horse for you. It is photographic memory. It can address all of those data points at once and then generate a horse for you of what it thinks is a horse. A lot of times it's going to be a mangled horse. Especially if it has hands, right? But that's what it's doing. And the cool thing about this stuff, the cool and the scary thing, is they're only getting smarter. They're only getting smarter. Humans don't necessarily get smarter. Like we hit a peak and then we start degrading over time, right? These computers don't. They keep going on a straight linear path up. They get smarter and smarter. The art gets better and better. For example, last year, who was talking about AI stuff? Not many people. It was around, but if you played with it like I did, it was coming out with some garbage, right? You could kind of see like, okay, I can't use that for anything, but I could see where it's going. And then services like ChatGPT showed up. Those language models have been around for a while, but they weren't good, quote, good enough for public until around version 3 with ChatGPT, where you could just put in, hey, build me a presentation on this, or write a bio on this, or write a whole blog post and have it write it better than you could. Is that eye-opening kind of moment of this is going to change things and now I can't live without it, right? So things happen really, really quickly. These language models or these generative AI models get smarter and smarter over time as they ingest more data into them. But where do they get that data from? Like, where do they get the data to ingest into them? And did they get permission to use that data? So that's the question in here that is in the courts. And we're gonna tackle that when I get to the slide about legalities and morality around this. Before we do that, I just want to show a couple of images so we can all be on kind of the same page with the level of quality that these generative AI models can produce for you. Okay, so this was created all of these were created in Midjourney AI. In the span, all of these images that you're going to see, I think cumulatively it probably took about an hour or less to create these from nothing, right? So, which is crazy. As an artist or as a photographer, just to know that you can just think. The magic of this stuff is the ability to will something into existence. I think that's the magic of this, right? And we're only in 2023, by the way. So these things are getting exponentially smarter almost weekly. The output is getting better and better and better. In fact, the output of these were made like a month ago. So they would be completely different today because the algorithms and the models are so much smarter now. But if we step through this, here's one. The prompt for this was create an alien-looking insect. And the parameters I put in, I'm trying to recalling from memory, but macro, shallow depth of field, insect, things like that. And this is what it generated from scratch. This has never existed before. Just like this one, an alien. I think the prompt for this one was an alien emerging from an egg or something like that, right? And that's what it came up with. I think this one was more of a failure, to be honest with you. This one was supposed to be a planet emerging from the clouds or something like that. It came out like looking like a bowling ball falling in somewhere. This one was an ominous alien figure with a brave man standing in front of it. So this is what the AI thought I was looking for. Here's another one. Same prompt, different parameters. Make it more scary. This one is interesting. This one is actually a production level piece. So I'm creating a course on iPhone photography and I needed a cover for the course. So why not, why not do it and let an AI help out with it? So the prompt for this was an iPhone with various fauna and flora bursting from it. And this is what it came up with. And that's one of the shots. But you look at this, right? This is not bad art that didn't exist before. I mean, arguably and subjectively, this isn't bad art. But if you look at it, that's fun. I mean, I could hire an artist to create that, and it would have cost me a certain amount of money. But I could sit on my laptop, watching The Last of Us, typing in prompts, and get this stuff, right? And that's kind of how this showed up. Here's another one. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I think that's it for that. Yep. So I just want to show you guys a couple more of those. A few more. So there's this one. So these last couple were, okay, so there's another one from that phone series. I think I don't have the one I ultimately ended. I didn't like this one because it's like, where's the phone? Um, but obviously good starting point, and then you go in and say, yes, less fauna and flora, less this, less that, more iPhone or whatever. But the science, this is when I first started learning. And by the way, I'm no expert in prompt science, but I'm an expert in knowing that it is going to be a thing that is listed on resumes going forward for creatives, understanding how to communicate with AIs to get a desired result out of them. That's a thing. Just like back in the day, it was you got to understand Microsoft Word and PowerPoint in order to get this job, it's now this, or if you're a creative, you need to understand the Creative Cloud in order to be qualified to get this position. I think now you will need to understand the Creative Cloud and Photoshop and all those things, along with being able to generate work in these algorithms. Here's another one for a podcasting course that's under development. I think the prompt for this one was microphone, an electrified microphone being destroyed or something along those lines. It was very simple. It was a very simple kind of rudimentary prompt at this level for making these. Prompt science has come so far, and one of the tools I'm going to show you is a very slick front end to this kind of technology. All of these were built with a text prompt. Write what you want, and it generates the image. Now it's come a little bit further. So now you have a lot of, as things mature, which they are maturing really quickly, you have a ton of power in what images you're going to create. And then this one was create a city under a dome in miniature. So do you see the power of just, if you will it, you can will it into existence, and then use these as a starting point for some other work that you're creating. Like we're gonna do this in this presentation. We're gonna create some original images and then do some other things to those original images that never existed before we all assembled here in this room, which is insane, right? And then you could take this knowledge and go off somewhere else and start creating the stuff on your own. This is not magic, right? It's not like, oh, you're able to do that because you're marinating in this technology and you've read all these white papers and all this stuff. It's not that hard, right? Anybody can do it. And with a few short steps, you can step through it. So let's move on. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the industry players. I'm going to bring up a slide so you guys can see who those folks are. There's many more than what I'm going to show you. So the players right now in this space are these guys. So at the top, there are many more players, obviously, than these, and many more are showing up every day. But Midjourney is the main one that I've been experimenting with, and I would encourage you to experiment with it as well. DALL-E, which was, I believe, one of the first generative AI models to show up. They all have a slightly different take on how they render images, and slightly different kinds of images come out of them. For example, in Midjourney, if you give it the proper parameters, like I want a portrait of a person standing on a beach, the lens is a 50 millimeter, it's overcast, it's, the sand is brown. If you give it those kind of photographic attributes, it will give you a quote, photographic output, whereas some of the other ones will give you more of an illustrative kind of drawing type output or 3D feeling output. So it's the right tool for the right job, even at this level. And it's stable diffusion. And then the ones that we're going to look at today are Midjourney and Leonardo.ai. Midjourney represents the kind of nerdy side of it, where you need to use Discord, which if you're using Discord, you already have a nerd card. So Discord. So we'll play with that one in Discord. Leonardo AI, I would encourage you all to sign up for their wait list. I think it took me about 24 hours-ish when I signed up for it to get approval. And then you get approval and you can access it. So they're gating entry right now. So play around with that. But let's dive in. I want to actually show some of these, and we'll start. Actually, let's go back and define generative AI first through the software. So to do that, I'm going to bring up a web browser running ChatGPT and do it live in front of you guys. I already did it, but I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it differently. So here's the prompt I put in just a few minutes ago before the presentation, and this is how ChatGPT defined generative AI with just a what is generative AI standpoint. But I want to take it a level further and ask it, define generative AI, type in sideways, generative AI from a lay person's perspective. Is that a word? Yeah. Okay, let's see. Live. Generative AI refers to a type of artificial intelligence that can create new and original content such as text, images, music, even videos. Even though those videos they're a little bit horrific right now. This stuff, nightmare fuel, some people say. Unlike other types of AI, which are trained to recognize patterns and make predictions based on existing data, generative AI uses algorithms and machine learning techniques to produce data that didn't exist before, which is crazy. So then he goes on to give some examples. So like I said, so close to what my description of generative AI is, right? So it's a bucket of data that some machine looks at and learns that thing and then makes inferences on that thing when you ask it questions about that. Now it has that learning. I understand what a horse looks like. I understand it 4 legs and this and maybe a tail and all that. So it can then generate that thing however you want it and put it in situ with the other things in your prompt, like generate a horse standing in a field with an overcast sky. Boom. So that's generative AI and that piece of it. So let's make something. We've got about 30 minutes left. We're gonna spend a lot of time on the side of the conversation about the legalities of this stuff. I wanted to show those pictures initially because I wanted us to be on the same page with regard to what it is we can create. I wanted ChatGPT, our AI assistant, to help us define the science and of what we're talking about. Now I want to actually do stuff live and see what kind of output we can generate. So to do that, I am going to bring up Discord. Okay, so now I'm in Discord. Who knows what Discord is? Raise your hand. Okay, most folks. Okay, cool. So we're all nerds, man, huh? In a good way. Okay, so some of you have played with Midjourney inside of Discord. I'm inside of my little Discord channel here. And the way that it works is very simple. It looks complicated on the screen for the folks that haven't seen it before, but my Discord account is connected to Midjourney, which they allow you to do. So you jump through a couple of hoops, and now it's connected, and now you can issue Midjourney commands inside of your Discord with a slash. So if I type /imagine space and then my prompt, right? So now it's prompt science. So what do we want to create? What should we create? This is our blank screen of creativity right now. So a dragon. What else? A dragon doing what?
Finding a sad fish.
A dragon fighting a sad fish? Okay, not a swordfish, a sad fish. Okay. A dragon fighting a sad fish. Any other? Okay. In Vegas. Yes. Okay. I don't know. I have no idea how this is going to come out. This is not my software. Okay. Okay. Create let's call it a commercial photograph of a dragon fighting what'd you call it? What? Sad fish on the strip. No, the Vegas Strip, right? Anything else? Okay. At night. That's it? All right. Let's see what we get. Okay. So this is going to take a minute for it to do it. So what's happening is it's sending that command to the Midjourney servers, and I'm in a queue with whoever else is creating images and have sent commands in. Once I get space in the queue, it will do this and start rendering 4 ideas of what it thinks that I want. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it ain't. This is where that prompt science comes in, because we could rewrite that prompt to be more descriptive, shoot it with this lens, or just show it with this lens, or do it like this, or do it like that, and then we get better. And sometimes it just omits things completely, like where's our sad fish in here, right? So let's look at that larger. But, I mean, that's from nothing, right? This did. I would too. Yeah, I would too. Destroy Vegas, right? Yeah, but like, yeah. I mean, this before we typed that prompt in, this didn't happen before. It went in and it figured, hey, okay, dragon. What does that look like? Okay, I think I got the dragon. Vegas. What does that look like? I got but no sad fish, right? So if you're a prompt ninja, you would know that you can, and as I'll show you when we get into Leonardo.ai, you can add weight to different aspects of your prompt so that I want you to, basically you're saying, I want you to pay more attention to the dragon, or Vegas is more important in this shot, re-render it, or the sad fish is more important, or just do it again, which is what we're gonna do, right? So inside, the way that this UI works, so we started with /imagine and our prompt, we ended up with this. Then the next step is down here at the bottom, you see U1 through U4 and V1 through V4. These are use version 1 through 4, meaning I like version whatever, use that, make a larger or a higher resolution version of that. Because what we're looking at now down here, these are just sketches of kind of to give you an idea of what it's going to do when it does a higher resolution version. So these are not finished versions yet. So if I say, yeah, I don't like any of those, you can click this sort of circular recycle thing, and it'll do it again. It'll create another set. So we'll let it create another set. You can do these simultaneously too, so you don't have to wait on one to do another one. So I'll go imagine and paste in that prompt again, and I'll say, oh, no, that was that. So let's go get this prompt first, and then we'll look at what it's doing. Oops, put this in here. Create a commercial photograph. I'm just gonna say create a photograph of a dragon fighting a sad, how about we give it more data on that? A sad, what's a good fish? Clownfish. On the Vegas AI from lay purpose, oh no, that's from the other prompt. Okay, so this is what it came up with the next round of that one. Those don't look like dragons to me. Those look more like sea monsters, but I mean, it's fun, right? So let's say, okay, this is great. It's at night. It got the night right. It got kind of the dragon piece right. And I think maybe this first one is the one that we'll go with, just because. And then we'll do the same thing with this one down here. But we go to this first one, we say, yes, I like version 1. It's closer to what I'm thinking. So I could select U1. If I click U1, it's going to make a higher resolution version of U1. Or I can click V1, and it'll give me variance on that first left top quadrant. So, so it goes V1 through V4. I want variance of this one. I'd click V4, for example. I want variance of 1. So I'm going to click 1, and it submits that job to the server. While that one's cooking, we can look at this one. It has a sense of humor, doesn't it? So you could put in terms like purposely I made that prompt very pedestrian, right? You could get really detailed with your prompts. You could, like I was saying before, you could put a parameter in there like make a photorealistic shot of whatever our subjects are, shot with a 14 millimeter lens, close up, distorted, all that. So you can put those kind of things in there. Again, it's like willing things into existence. So for this one, I think it looks like he's down there by Old Vegas or something over there. So that's 4. So we go back to this one and say, make some variance on number 4. And then we'll come down and look at this one, right? And we're making this art together, right? Wait till you see what we do with this later, because it's just some cool stuff that's happening here. So on this one, I think I like, which one do you guys like? Which variant? 1, 2, 3, or 4? 3? This one? Okay. So for this one, I'm just going to say use 3. We like it. We don't need variance. It's getting closer down there. See the one at the bottom? Look at that. Those are some horrific looking fish. Look at this tongue coming out. That's the sad, yeah. The sad fish. that has no mate, right? Okay, so on that one, let's just say use number 2, and then we'll see what we're coming up with. Okay, so now it's generating those for us. So we have 2 jobs cooking. It'll make higher resolution versions of those. You can make them even higher resolution through the commands that you can issue to Midjourney. The other cool thing about this art that we're generating from the app, it's never, at least today, it's not ultra high resolution, right? I think it's at max, don't hold me to it, but I think around like HD resolution, like 1080 on the long side, maybe double that, but still not giant. You're not going to print it and put it on the wall, or are you? Because it turns out apps like there's one from, I think it's Topaz Labs called Gigapixel AI, where you can feed a photo into it, and using AI, it will enlarge the image and make it larger, give you more resolution than you had before. It works surprisingly well on these AI images. You can take a low resolution portrait, with your camera or whatever, put it in, it'll give it enough resolution that it won't be fuzzy or whatever. You can even put fuzzy images or out of focus or slightly motion blurred images into the AI software, and it'll correct those kinds of things. When you apply it to AI, though, you can make these things as big as you want and give you as much resolution as you want for the next step in this process. So you're going to use this as the basis for a composite that you're working on in Photoshop. You need it at a certain resolution. You can blow it up to that, bring it in Photoshop, and go about your business. Never having created anything, no artistic skills, but now you have these, right? So look at that. I mean, one of the funny where's the fish? I don't know. There's no fish in this one.
I thought they combined.
He looks like a dragon, crocodile, something, T-Rex with no hands, no arms, but he has legs. Or Jurassic Park. It's funny. This is a slight non sequitur. A friend of mine and I were talking a couple days ago about this stuff, as we do, but the conversation went to what ifs. And we're like, what if it's not really creating art at all? What if they figured out a way to just pull data in from other dimensions? And these are realities that actually exist somewhere. Could be, right? Whatever has existed, everything's possible in the multiverse, right? So, yeah, so scary. So I would like not to go to this one, this universe right there. But really cool, though. The art itself is subjective. Obviously, we're just doing this for fun in the front. But if you were serious about your prompt science, you were diving into this stuff to really get an understanding of how to craft the prompt to get what you want out of the generative AI model, you could see where this stuff can go, right? You can take it to the extremely high resolution, Unreal Engine level photorealistic, or anime, or whatever style you want to render this stuff in. So, which brings me to the legalities and the moralities around this stuff. We'll leave our fish up there for a minute. So I started the conversation. Yes, sir. We'll define expensive, right? So the expense, it's a server. It's doing math. So,
But it's not a lot.
It's not a lot. No, it's not a lot. Which means, if you want to put on your investment hat, right? People are building these generative AI models that are clearly going to be really, really popular and disrupt and eliminate a lot of jobs and a lot of necessity to buy stock art and stock photography and all these things that you can now do yourself. It's going to impact a lot of stuff. So the cost for this is, I would argue, negligible. It's almost like the digital economy that iTunes helped push forward, where you're buying a 3.5 megabyte song that was created that lives on a server, but you're going to pay money for it over and over and over, as customers purchase it, and it's just server activity at that point. Oh, the thinking is always, if we consumers, this is military me talking, right? If we consumers, we're always the last to get any amazing technology, right? It's always been sort of whitewashed and dumbed down, and the corners have been filed off so we don't poke ourselves in the eye. Then we get the technology that then iterates into something. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the people that are in the know have version 20 of this already running, doing all kinds of crazy stuff that they're going to drip feed out to us over time. In some cases it's real-time development, but in a lot of cases there's things are already been done, right? And we just don't see it yet. Kind of like GPS. GPS has been around since the 30s, 40s, 50s, something like that. GPS technology. The military's been was using it before we even knew what that acronym was. And then suddenly we get it. But the version that we got when they started putting GPS in cars initially was a dumbed down version of what the military, same satellites, but they purposely degraded the signal so that it wasn't as accurate as what because military had different needs for GPS, right? Than us just trying to get to Walmart or whatever, right? So yeah, same thing with this kind of technology. Not that the military is, maybe they are working on generative AI models, but who knows? Who knows where this stuff is going to go? I think the point of all this stuff is, the genie is definitely out of the bottle with this stuff, and people are starting to notice, especially people that feel like they've been infringed upon. Right? Like, for example, in the courts right now, or either in the courts or about to be in the courts, it's Getty, the large stock photography house that I think it was Midjourney or Dolly, one of these big ones, ingested a large part of their publicly accessible library, which comes watermarked with Getty on there so that you buy the image. Sometimes when you generate an image, at least it used to, I haven't seen it lately, you generate an image and it would have a Getty watermark. Some broken up in there somehow. Like in this image, you'd see Getty like on the leg or something of one of these, because they can't get rid of that. I'm sure they could over time, filter that out of there. But even Flickr, one of the companies I'm associated with, the Flickr database, the publicly facing database of photos, was ingested into these models to train them on how to do things. So where does the law lie with that, right? So like for all of us, for example, all of us probably have a bunch of photos online, and we've been putting photos online since our cameras could take decent photos, or our phones could take decent photos to put online. So there's a gazillion photos online that are publicly accessible at any given time. Those, in a lot of cases, have been slurped into these AI models. So here's an example. So I'm not gonna do this here, but here's an example. When I first started playing with Midjourney, I was wondering if it knew, like, what does it know? So in ChatGPT's model was frozen in 2021. So it doesn't know anything past 2021. A lot of things have happened since 2021, right? So it doesn't know anything past 2021. Currently, GPT-4 is internet connected. So it understands the current world. ChatGPT-3, when I first started using it, didn't understand what was happening right now. But in ChatGPT-3, I put in, create a bio for Frederick Van Johnson. And I think I put something like, create a medium-length bio for Frederick Van Johnson to be used at a conference as an introduction, blah, blah, something like that. And it wrote a bio about me that was accurate. It had my military experience in there. It had, I worked at Adobe, blah, blah, blah. So clearly it had looked at my LinkedIn profile and pulled that data in, and then rewrote it in the style that I asked it to rewrite it in. So I was like, wow, well, I've been around, I was around in 2021, so it could pull that in. And I'm a fairly public person with all my stuff online. But I thought that was incredible that it could do that from just a name and just a description. Just write this about me, right? But then I went to Midjourney, and I was like, I wonder if Midjourney knows who I am. I wonder if Midjourney, what does that look like? So I said, I put into Midjourney, and this is still a little creepy. I put into Midjourney, I said, create a photo of Frederick Van Johnson as a 9-year-old riding a tricycle. And it created it wasn't me, but it created a photo of a little black kid, a little black boy on a tricycle that was roughly 9 years old. So it kind of knew about me. Like the system knew about me, which I thought was kind of creepy, right? If it had put me in there, I would have really freaked out. But but it knew about me. So those are some of the things that we're still trying to like, okay, is that good? Is that bad? Should I care about that? Should I not care about that? Even in our TWIP community, we had an extra. We did this. I was showing that I wanted to see if there was or what kind of bias it had. The language or the Midjourney model had. So I put in. We're in our Zoom and we were doing it live inside, and I said, no, actually, no, I did this one offline. I said, create a photo of a beautiful woman, just like that. And it created a very Scandinavian looking, beautiful woman, right? And we all know there are millions of kinds of beautiful women, but it chose that one as the representation it was going to show me. So I said, is that bias or is that something else? So I brought it up in the community and we all sort of thought about it. So at the end, we figured out, yeah, it may be biased, but it's also language based. So we put in, Renee Robbins, a friend of mine, she actually figured this out. She's like, okay, create a photo of a beautiful woman, but put it in a different language and see if it tries to give you the correct output based on that language. And it did. It gave, I think she did German. It came up with a German looking woman, like all of them. And then we put in, on mine, I had put in, create a photo of a beautiful black woman, and it came back with a very African looking woman, right? So, and I put it in English. It's not like I wrote it in some African language. I put it in English, and it still came back with that. So I'm like trying to get my brain around where the biases lie, and I think the takeaway from that is to, as you're using these models, to understand that there may be some bias in there in any direction, right? Even I'm interviewing a company in Germany that is creating a AI. I'm going to do this interview, I think it's next week or the week after. And I'm curious what you guys think about this. They're creating an AI to judge photo contests. So instead of the subjectivity of a human saying, oh, this is a great photo objectively, you did a great work with it, it's going to look at it and compare it to it's a machine, right? So it's going to compare it to what it thinks an acceptable photo of that genre is and score it and move on with it.